Okay, I'll go ahead and get us started. I'm sure a few people will probably join us as we get started here. But hello and welcome everyone to our first partner webinar 2025 AP Automation Breakthroughs, Eliminate Manual Touchpoints Across Invoices and Payments. I'm your host, Trevor O'Mara-Luby. Some of you probably know me as your channel manager. I'm based out of the Chicago area and have been with Charted for over 1.5 years and in the NetSuite ecosystem for over five. Also joined by my two colleagues, Mike and Marlon. Mike is based out of Portsmouth, New Hampshire. He said no one knows where Greenland is, but maybe someone does. So I will mention both. But he has been with Charted for over 4 years. He started on the managed services team and then moved on to the product management team as a product manager. And then we also have Marlon, based out of Arlington, Virginia, who's been with Charted for over 1.5 years and has been in the product management space for over five, being at most recently Spridley for 3.5 years. So the goal of today is to give you an overview of some of our recent releases, as well as a glimpse of what's to come in 2026. We'll begin our journey by looking at the current state of AP, then we'll dive into roadmap, recent releases, and then we'll wrap up with the future of AP and NetSuite. Of course, if any questions come up while we're presenting, please use the Q&A chat and we'll go over them at the end. So to begin, AP teams. Let me see if this moves over. Okay, AP teams, like many others in every organization, are being asked to move faster, be more accurate while closing on time. This can be extremely difficult for small AP teams, or if you can imagine ones with high volumes of invoices or vendors. So how do these teams actually move faster, close on time while staying accurate? So one of these ways is by removing repetitive and manual tasks that can cause friction in different parts of the AP process. So below you can see there are many different components in the AP process. With each component comes its own unique challenges and points of friction, and as a result, time-consuming tasks. Some of these can be importing and exporting data, troubleshooting with support, and following up. So this can be following up with vendor questions, chasing down approvals, and much more. So you might be asking which manual tasks are the biggest pain points and what should I be looking out for my customers? So great question. We actually recently launched a survey to find out exactly what those are. So we had two that stood out above the rest. And with that, I will pass over to Mike to go over what those results are.
Yeah, absolutely. As Trevor said, we recently asked the question to some of our customers and prospects and said, which of the repetitive manual tasks are the most consuming the most time for your AP team each week? Two largest answers that we received were overwhelmingly around the invoice automation, right, invoice entry process, as well as approvals, right? So once you get the invoice into the system, how do we get it approved very efficiently and get it routed for a payment? And that really aligns very nicely with what we're going to talk about on this webinar. So just wanted to kind of highlight some real data, some real answers from our customers around what they're telling us their pain points are. One of our big initiatives this year was really to eliminate some of the manual touch points that our customers have in their AP processes. I'm going to focus on talking about what we've done this year from an invoice automation standpoint, and I'm going to show you some of those features on a little bit of a demo here, and then I'll turn it over to Marlon and let him focus on the payment side of things. So let's go and flip over to the next slide here, Trevor, and talk a little bit about what we've done on the AP side of things for invoice processing or invoice automation. So if you are a partner of ours and have been a partner of ours for a long time, you know that we've been focused on invoice automation for quite a while here, a number of years, I think over 5 or 6 years now, introducing OCR technology to NetSuite and making that as scalable for large teams as possible. But we always understand that our solution's not perfect and there's areas to improve and make things a little bit better. So we started this year with an initiative of like, what are the pieces of the process that aren't really working as well for our customers? Are there any quick wins that we can grab and tackle really quickly? And then are there bigger initiatives that we want to tackle this year? So this is just a little bit of the information about what we did this year to help make the invoice processing flow more streamlined. The first thing that we delivered, and I'll show you all of these, like I said, on a demo here in just a few minutes, was just some of the quick actions that people need to do on items within our inbox. Things like, hey, I have a big AP team and multiple people are responsible processing invoices. I need to quickly assign this to someone else. Like if Marla and I were both on the AP team, maybe there's an invoice that came in. It was assigned to me to start with, but I realized it's something that Marlon needs to take care of. Let me quickly get that over to Marlon and understand, get that in his queue for processing. Another big one is around subsidiaries, right? Large organizations, we've always supported organizations with multiple subsidiaries. We have logic that comes in and we'll try to properly assign the subsidiary, but no one's going to get it perfectly all the time, right? And there's a lot of pain points around, hey, if it's not right, like how do we go around correcting that? So we brought the ability to do some of those quick actions directly to the inbox. You never need to go to another screen and do any sort of workaround. The next thing that we really tackled was around streamlined navigation. So we introduced a new portlet for NetSuite on the home dashboard, which just really streamlines the navigation into our application and allows an AP professional to quickly jump in right when they log into NetSuite, understand what bills are sitting in the inbox need to be reviewed, and start their kind of daily job of reviewing, maybe reviewing, following up on items that are pending approval, and have very easy visibility into those things at their fingertips on the NetSuite home dashboard. The next thing that we moved on to later in the year was how do we just streamline really the manual speed of processing invoices. So I call this continuous processing. We realized that, especially on larger companies with larger volumes, it was kind of a pain point to have to look at an item within the inbox, review one of those things, and then jump back to the inbox to figure out what you were working on next. So we worked with our engineers and said, how can we make this flow more efficient? How can we kind of say, hey, let's queue up the next item for the customer already for them. So when they hit the save button, we actually have a new button called Save and Next. We'll quickly switch them to the next item within their inbox that's ready for them to process. It kind of helps with load times as well, because we're gaining from the ability of kind of loading things in the background. So from a customer standpoint, things all feel faster for them. They're not having to disrupt their flow, and the person that's responsible for processing invoices is able to more efficiently do that. So at that stage in our, kind of breakthroughs throughout the year, still focus on keeping a customer in or a consumer or AP professional in the flow, but just making them more efficient. The last thing that we recently launched on the invoice processing front is some new touchless invoice processing functionality. So this kind of takes it to the next level. It's not going to be for all bills that a customer might process, but for a subset of bills that a customer might process, really those high confidence invoices, like invoices, if customers are using purchase orders, invoices that match a purchase order exactly, or for particular vendors that maybe receive very recurring everyday sort of invoices for, how can we automate the creation of those invoices so that they don't have to flow through some sort of manual review, split screen? Yep, everything looks good, and I'm just clicking the save button. That doesn't really add a lot of value to the AP process for a user to have to do that. So let's remove those things by auto creating them and allow the AP professional to focus on those other items that do require a little bit more of their attention. So that's really the four main high level things that we've tackled and focused on this year. With that, I'm going to go ahead and demo each one of these to you. So Trevor, I'll go ahead and steal the screen share from you. And we'll jump into a little bit of demo. I know Trevor already talked about this, but while I get my screen shared here, if you guys do have questions, feel free to drop those into the Q&A section, and maybe we won't be able to address them right here as I'm going through the demo, but we'll be happy to address those at the end, assuming we have time. As you guys know, we are a NetSuite native suite app, so we do like to tout that our solution sits inside of NetSuite. The first thing that I'm really demoing to you here is our new portlet that can be added to the NetSuite home dashboard. Again, I really think this is it's a little thing, but it's really nice from a user experience standpoint. As you're configuring NetSuite and maybe you want to add in additional reminder portlets that are important to your customer, help them navigate to things that they need to review, navigate to other quick links that they might want on their home dashboard. They can also integrate the charted experience here too. It will show them kind of a mini version of our full AP dashboard. They're going to easily be able to navigate to bills that need to be reviewed, items that are not submitted, or things that are out for approval. This is a portlet, so if you do have customers or if you're implementing customers with our solution, you can easily just have them personalize their dashboard and add the new charted portlet to it. If I drill into the AP inbox, again, this is going to show you some of the additional functionality that we've added around how can I take quick action on things that maybe are still sitting in the inbox. So we implemented this actions menu. Before there was a remove option, so you could remove things that maybe came in or duplicates or didn't need to be processed for whatever reason. So we kind of expanded upon that functionality and added in the ability to update certain fields. Like I talked about in the slides here, maybe this came in and was assigned to our Charted Inc. subsidiary, and I needed to reassign it to a different subsidiary. I can easily do that with just a couple clicks. Or from an ownership standpoint, if I was assigned as the owner of this particular item, but I needed to switch it over to Marlon or another person in our AP team, I can easily do that in just a click or two. This works nicely with our filters. If you had a user that, if I was a user and I said, hey, I only want to be focused on items where I'm assigned as the owner, those filters have been sticky for a long period of time, and adding in that additional functionality to reassign the owner or reassign the subsidiary really helps those customers that have a larger scale of invoices get through them more efficiently. The last thing that we did add in here, I don't think I even covered on this slide, but it's part of my demo, is adding the ability to filter by PO status. So this was another feature that was completely driven by customer request. They said, hey, I am very focused on POs. Our business operation primarily uses POs. There's a lot of things that come in that are just not received yet. Maybe it's on a boat or it's in the truck still. The invoices already been sent to us. I just want to filter out the noise. I want to know what's ready for me to process and actually get into NetSuite because we require something like receipt before billing. They can now easily filter on PO status. If we've identified that there's a purchase order number on that particular invoice, they can say, hey, I just want to focus on those items that are ready for billing and go ahead and get those out of my queue first. And then maybe I'll filter back and look at items without POs. If you have additional statuses in your inbox, they'll also show up here. So things like, hey, let me double check on items that are pending receipt. We've received a bill in the inbox, but haven't yet received it into NetSuite yet. You can filter by those additional statuses if they appear to. All right, that kind of shows you what would happen if we filtered down to just a particular item. So the next thing I'll go into is our continuous processing that I talked about. And again, this is kind of an advancement that we added into our general flow. So before, if I would have processed this invoice, I reviewed it and I was ready to go to the next invoice, what I would typically have to do is click the save button, go back to the inbox, pick the next item, and get ready to process that. We've now introduced this save and next functionality. So essentially what it does is when you click that save and next button, the next invoice is preloaded for you and ready to go. So it'll quickly switch to that one while it conducts the saving and any sort of submitting that needs to happen in the background. So I can more efficiently move through whatever is in my inbox. It does respect any sort of filters and sorting that you might have. So if I have the inbox sorted by invoice date, right? I want to process the oldest invoices first, right? And get them out of my queue. It will respect all of those filters when it's producing or recommending the next invoice for you to go ahead and process. The last thing that I'll quickly show here on my demo is our touchless invoice processing. So again, this is really helpful for I'll say those high confidence bills that your customers might have. So one very common scenario is we are using purchase orders. Bills come in, they are exact matches to those purchase orders. Do we really need a user to review that in the split screen view and just click the save button if everything looks correct? Probably not, right? That's probably an opportunity for us to introduce some efficiency into the system. We also have a way that for non-PO vendors, like I talked about, you can enable them. So there are controls here. Not everything's going to be created, but you can enable certain vendors to say, hey, you're getting everything right on this particular vendor. Let's go ahead and have that vendor's invoices in the future start to auto-create. This also works in conjunction. The reason that we introduced this was it's kind of a next level of our Invoice AI solution where we have some flexibility around how information is extracted, how it's populated onto the vendor bill record through AI directions. So you can kind of prompt us to maybe populate a custom field or extract the invoice number a little bit differently. So all those kind of things play into getting us to the ability of being able to auto create things more efficiently. We did add this process tab, which I'm kind of skipping over a little bit, but that added visibility into things that have been created and things that have been auto processed with our solution, or things that are manually processed. You want to kind of go back and review and find something you created that moved out of the inbox. You can easily do that now. This is an example of one of those bills that was auto created. And again, this does demonstrate that ability to create AI directions to customize how information is extracted. This is a common use case as a product manager I've seen talking with our customers where energy bills don't have a unique identifier. So a lot of times our customers are doing something like, hey, I want to append the account number, which is not unique. It shows up on all invoices from this particular vendor, but I want to uh, concatenate or append together the account number, the month of the invoice, and the year of the invoice. I created a direction for that in my demo account. So every time I receive an invoice from PGE Energy, it's going to go ahead and say, hey, that's what I need to use as the invoice number because that's what I've told it I need to do. So all of that sort of culmination of technology is giving that additional, I guess, level of accuracy, level of getting the bill into the system the way that our joint customers expect, so that then we can say, hey, we don't need to review this in the inbox. It can be auto processed in the future. That's what I have to talk about on the invoice automation front. So I will go ahead and stop sharing and turn it over to, I believe it's Marlon's turn to cover
Yep.
some of our
I will
payment
I will go
automation
and pull
stuff.
the slides up for you, Marlon. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. So payments has been a big year for us. We've seen a lot of growth in the payments ecosystem. For partners on the call, just for some background, like payments is definitely one of our newer products in our suite. Really invoice AI and kind of invoice scanning and OCR like that was our bread and butter. But we saw a big opportunity. A lot of those customers also needed payments, right? We need to do our best to service that P of the AP. So it's like 50% of the word. So we want to service that too. And it turns out a lot of our customers do need this. And so specifically where we started was ACH payments and then also outsourced check payments. We also offer a in-house on-prem check printing bundle, which is also part of this as well. But by and large, we've seen most of our growth on kind of the ACH and outsourced check printing side. So outsource is where we actually print the check, we format it, we send it to the vendor on a customer's behalf. So there's no kind of like manual mail teams required in order to do that. And then ACH is obviously an interbank electronic transfer between banks to make a payment. Just a recent statistic you all might find interesting. So checks, despite the fact that it's 2025, it still constitutes about 24% of B2B payments in 2025. We're seeing the trend decrease more and more over time, but it still remains to be a very important part of paying businesses. So as a result, we want to continue to maintain that for our businesses and also importantly make it easy to bridge and transfer payments from an ACH payment to a check payment. So that's one of the core principles of our design of payments automation is to be able to do that. So over the course of the year, we've made a number of improvements just to make that quality of life a little easier for customers that are using both ACH and check printing, to make that more configurable, to allow exclusions, to allow kind of those edge cases as they come up. If there's a return payment on the ACH payment, what happens? Driving a quick resolution, helping customers get there. I've been in the payment space for right around 5 years now, and what you find is like the happy path. It's really easy to solve those, but it's the edge cases that's really where a lot of the time investment comes into play, and also a lot of the value in a payment solution is solving those edge cases eloquently and not introducing too much constraint on those businesses using payments. So that's where we've kind of focused a lot of our efforts is just making that overall more seamless for customers. We've made a number of improvements to also the release payments experience, where we found most of our users on payments were spending a lot of their time in addition to that approval step. So making sure the approvals interplay together, and then also making sure that release experience is seamless and doesn't introduce too many complexities into actually making a payment run. So then we kind of focused our efforts into international payments. So we did this in two phases. The first is US international payments, just purely in USD. So we focused on, I believe the recent stat is about 80 to 90% of our customers are based in the US. So we wanted to kind of service those customers first, focusing on the US dollar as being the primary ways to pay vendors overseas. So that was our very first release of international payments. We do support over 200 countries in terms of being able to receive those payments. There's no extra portals or steps required to log into your bank, to initiate a wire, to use a wire template. For folks that have multiple bank accounts, this is even better because you don't have to manage multiple payment credentials and bank credentials that potentially are a security risk. So we've kind of removed that, abstracted away, integrated it within our current kind of ACH and check payment processing. So the payment run is the same experience for both international ACH and check. So you don't have to go to disparate systems and kind of do reconciliation and gather all of your data into one single source, because we are making that intrinsic in the payment release process. So that was the first phase, is focusing on USD. The second phase is also servicing US customers, but this time unlocking FX. So we say FX, referring to currency or foreign exchange. So anytime there's a currency conversion, we will actually handle that for you. So if you're billed in the euro and and your base currency of that business is the US dollar, we will not only pull in a kind of a exchange rate live at time of release, but we're also going to kind of handle that complexity of handling the accounting when it comes to FX and currency exchange. Specifically, the tricky aspect is if the currency exchange rate changes at the time of the bill gets created versus the time it gets released, there's essentially like a realized gain or loss on that trade. And so that's why it's important to kind of capture that in NetSuite, propagate that information back to NetSuite, because NetSuite will handle all that accounting complexity for you without putting a lot of strain on your accounting teams to handle that. So by keeping it all in NetSuite, kind of avoid some of the common problems that come with accepting and divvying out international payments. Second component to that is the compliance aspect of onboarding a vendor. So we actually onboard the vendor on your behalf. And it doesn't matter if the vendor is based out of China or Italy or Belarus, right? Essentially, we will just capture the fields required for that country, which are going to vary from country to country based on the regulatory aspect of accepting payments there. And we're going to handle all that complexity for you, so you don't have to think about that. And then the last kind of aspect of what we worked on is actually still something we're cooking, our development team is working on right now, is the accelerated ACH. So our standard ACH flow works wonderfully for customers on kind of like net 30, net 60. They know when the bill's due. They have a lot of time to kind of process that. We have seen exceptions come up, right? There's maybe net 10 vendors. There's payments that you're running a little behind on when it comes to approvals. Accelerated ACH seeks to address that. It is typically a same-day ACH, depending on that receiving bank account, can be next day if it doesn't support real-time payments on the vendor side. But in any case, it's a very urgent payment, and it will kind of give those businesses peace of mind that they're not going to be running behind on a payment, that they have at least some kind of other option for you. So those are the four main aspects of what we worked on. Invested a lot in payments, so excited to see some continued growth as well in that space. So now we're going to go to a demo. I'm going to be focusing mainly on international payments. I think there's a lot to walk through there. So I will go ahead and share my screen. And feel free to pause if you all have questions as I'm going through this as well on how this works. But it starts with sending the invite to the vendor. And the invite process can be exactly the same as, again, ACH or check. It's going to be the same kind of process of triggering an invite that sends a private email link that is encrypted just for that user. So they're going to go ahead and enter in their business information. And you can see they're going to be given an option. If they're an international vendor, they are going to see this option here, international payments. They'll select that. And then they will select the country that they're located in, their business is located in. And then they'll also have the opportunity to select the currency. So today we support the native currency of that receiving country, which in this case, UK is the British pound. We also support USD as an option too. So you can kind of decide on what options you present to your vendors. You might want to just say, hey, we only do USD, or hey, we only do FX. But in any case, we want to give some optionality there when sending the invite. Enter in all their information, agree and continue. And then at that point, essentially the payment method has been created. So you can see you have the option, or as a AP manager, the standard process is to have all those payment methods reviewed and approved before they are approved for payment. That's kind of an extra layer of approvals that you get with our payments automation product. So review their information, make sure everything looks good, and then press confirm. At that point, it's now a valid payment method. You can then create bill payments to that vendor. And what payments automation does is essentially listens for all bill payment created events, and it is going to show up in the ready for release queue. So this is the pay bill screen. Essentially, you're probably familiar, like this is NetSuite native functionality to create a bill payment. You're just batching together bills and putting them into a single bill payment. Now, payments automation is going to listen for these events to be created. If they have a different currency, or if they're paid out to an international vendor that we have flagged on our side, it's going to show up as an international payment method type. So we're going to go to release payments, and we can see we created a payment here. And this is doing actually a conversion, FX conversion between the euro and US dollar. So in this case, the customer was billed in euros. Their base currency is US dollar. And so as a result, the exchange rate gets kind of fed. It's a live feed. And you can actually refresh this feed as well to see what the exchange rate between those two currencies are. In this case, it's 1.11614. You can see the international payment type is populated. It's also alongside ACHs, so it's not like a different release process, which makes things really seamless for businesses doing this. You can also export this by CSV if you want to load that into your own BI tool as well. If you want to refresh the rate, you can do so. And then in terms of actually releasing the payment, it's just a one-click process. Just click the check mark and then confirm that everything looks good and submit that payment. Once that payment's submitted, we keep everything on our payments history tab. You got to kind of think of this as the source of truth for payments that have been released. We also propagate that information back to NetSuite as well in terms of assigning a check number or an ACH number to that payment, also in the case of international. But if you want to check in on status, you can see all pending international payments as well by filtering here on this view. Also worth noting that if you click into a payment, you can see details around that payment. You can see the final exchange rate. You can also refer back to the bill payment record by clicking on the URL here. That will go back to NetSuite for you as well. So again, you're kind of interplaying with the NetSuite native component of our application, which a lot of our customers really enjoy. You don't have to learn new processes around this, and they can use the screens and functionality that's very familiar to them because they're live and breathe NetSuite. So yeah, at that point, again, the international wire has been routed, and at that point, the process is complete. So now we're going to pass it back over to Mike, who's going to be talking through and giving a little sneak peek of what's coming next year and the years ahead as well.
Yeah, thanks, Marlon. Yeah, so we'll both kind of talk. Wanted to give you guys a little bit of a understanding about what's in the works or what's coming up in the works from our product standpoint. We do hear our customers, we do hear our partners. Your guys' feedback is invaluable in helping us understand where are the gaps in the market and our products and making sure that they are able to continue to improve. So one of the big things we are working on currently in the works from an invoice automation standpoint is e-invoicing. If you guys are working with customers, you're definitely aware, especially if you're working with international customers, invoicing mandates are becoming more and more common, especially in Europe. So we're working very hard to be able to deliver and support an e-invoicing solution that gives the same native NetSuite sort of experience to our customers, but make sure that it complies with these upcoming mandates in various different countries. Something interesting that we're also evaluating as part of that flow is how can we expand potential e-invoicing opportunities for US-based customers as well. So there's some growing movement, even though it's probably farther behind on a mandate standpoint. But there are some networks that are becoming more and more popular in the United States that allow customers to optionally transmit e-invoices from one customer to another. So this is a great opportunity for customers in the past that maybe had to come up with or wanted to come up with some sort of like customized EDI exchange, right? We want to be able to develop a solution that supports that as well and provides an easier option for integrating into standardized networks across the globe. We talked a little bit about how we have reduced manual touch points for our customers with the inbox flow and some of the things that they're doing every single day. But we do understand that customers are still continuing to tell us things that we could do better on. So we are going to continue to be focused on those customer-driven enhancements going into 2026. Some common ones that we hear from our customers are things like, hey, we want to be able to process vendor credits with the same ease that we can process vendor bills currently inside of NetSuite. So that's something that we're currently evaluating, as well as some additional flexibility around what shows up within our inbox view. So maybe I want this field first, or maybe I want to hide this field and add in this other field, and just add in a little bit more flexibility to each individual customer, each individual AP user, maybe what they need to see to get their job done. So that's some of the stuff that we're currently in the process of working on or evaluating that will be coming up next from a invoice AI or invoice automation flow. And I'll turn it over to Marlon to cover some of the payments related initiatives.
Yep. So we have a number of payments enhancements over the next few quarters ahead. We're working on a few things to overall just decrease the amount of time that teams are spending on those payments runs. So typically we see a lot of our businesses that we work with, they're doing payment runs maybe once or twice a week. There is a manual component of that, and we want to just increase the automation there and the ability for those businesses to do kind of hands-free payments releases. So with that comes kind of this idea of scheduling payments in advance, which we're really excited to be working on. And essentially with that feature, might bring, still in kind of a design phase, but we're looking at, ways to intelligently determine the best time to release a payment. We know there's a delicate balance between, paying your vendor on time and also trying to sit on those funds as long as possible. So you're kind of also productive with that capital. There's a time of money cost evaluation that every treasury is very familiar with. They can earn interest, they can do other things with that money. So kind of keeping those two opposing factors in mind when designing this feature. Also, alongside of payments enhancements, vendor onboarding is super critical for businesses that use Charted, both for kind of payments related and then also non-payments related customers. But in particular, we want to make sure we have two different kind of disparate onboarding paths. One's called advanced vendor onboarding, and then the other is payee onboarding. Looking at ways to kind of refine and improve the way that these two interplay together, so that customers are able to have the level of control that they need without making it super manually intensive for them to make changes, and rely on implementation teams. So looking at more like self-service models, looking at easier ways for our customers to gather the required information from those vendors while giving them kind of that flexibility. Also looking at things like, automated field gathering and reminders and things of that nature, which are common pain points when you're onboarding a large set of vendors. So kind of trying to tackle some of those problems and automate them, make it easier for our customers. And then the last initiative here we have is just global expansion. So for next year, we're looking to onboard both Canadian and UK-based businesses. So these are both businesses we have some customers in. We're looking to make expansions there in our business. See a big opportunity there, and excited to be able to support originating payments on the international side and also domestically if they want to pay businesses within their country as well. So supporting both kind of FX and then local payments for those countries is a big initiative, both in the company but also on the payments product side. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Trevor, who's going to close us out.
Awesome. Thanks, Marlon. Thanks, Mike. Um, So for those of you that are interested or have customers interested in learning about the touchless future of API automation, you can download our guide by scanning the QR code or by following the link that should be going in the chat. And then before we move on to questions and our raffle, if you guys didn't know we had a raffle, we have a raffle. I just found out who the winner is, so stay tuned. But if you have any customers or prospects that could benefit from Charted, please contact your assigned partner manager, or you can fill out the partner referral form on our website, which is also going to be linked in the chat here momentarily. So the fun part, um, so I just got the message. It looks like our winner for today, which is a $250 Amazon gift card or a donation to a charity of your choice, is Diana G. Diana, if you're still on here, I can't look at the attendee list. I will reach out to you through email on getting you your gift card, or if you do want to donate to a charity, on just figuring out which one that would be. So congratulations. And for any questions, we feel free to put them in the Q&A chat and we'll go through them. I did add some pieces on keywords and just common pain points to think of. And of course, if you have any questions from today later on, you can reach out to either me or to your partner manager. And it looks like we do have one in Mike and Marlon. If you do see any others pop up, feel free. But it looks like this will be going to Mike. So is part of the touchless processing around the system coming up with the appropriate memo lines for the bill? For example, if there is a PO for consulting and we are getting monthly bills with the memo XXX June 2025 fees or XX July 2025 fees to start populating based on the month received?
Yeah, that's a great question. Ties in a little bit with what I talked about earlier. So before we even kind of introduced this touchless invoice functionality or being able to auto create certain bills, we launched what we call AI directions. They're just natural language prompts that allow you to change kind of the way that or help give us context about how information could be extracted off of an invoice. I gave a little bit of an example around, hey, we want to bring together the in the account number, the month, and the year as the invoice number, right? That was the example I showed on the call, but something like this could fit into that same sort of framework for like a customer you might be working with. So we could say, hey, every time there's an invoice from Delta Consultants, I want you to use as the memo line consulting services June 2025 or July 2025, and it could pick up that month by whatever the month of the invoice might be. So I like to say with AI directions, as long as you could hand someone, think of it this way, it's a context of how do we extract information. So as long as you could hand someone a piece of paper off the street, say, here's my instructions to you. I want you to return this as the memo. I want you to return this as the invoice number. That's the kind of use case that it helps with automating. So yeah, definitely could incorporate that into the flow and automate, we'll just say automate the manual task if that's the one thing that was holding them back from an automated future of getting this into the solution without the need for um, opening up in a split screen view. A direction could help with that.
So looks like we have an easy one there.
Yeah.
So if anyone else has any questions, I know we're about at time here. Feel free to reach out to your partner manager or to me. The contact information is on the slide. But yeah, appreciate everyone joining us today and have a great rest of the week and happy holidays.